What can you do to help your children, to help yourselves, help your children get through this very challenging environment that we find ourselves in? So I'm going to invite Tim Shriver to come and address.
Here I come. Here I come. Out of the corner of your eye. Thank you, Rahima. Thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I know. Who is? I hope someone is. That's so nice. I'm thrilled to be here. I know we're running late. I know everybody's tired. I know you've had a full day, so I'm going to try to shorten a little bit. This is what my grandson says when he wants something shorter, and this is bigger. So we'll try to shorten a little bit, but I'm super grateful, and I will say it's hard for us to follow America's doctor and America's teacher. I was thinking about what does that make us? I was like, okay, we're just America's students maybe. So together with you and all of you here doing this extraordinarily important work, I'm going to try, as Rahima said, to be a little more practical, engage a little bit more in the day-to-day work of what it means to respond in this moment socially and emotionally and academically to the needs of our kids and the needs of our schools. Let me say at the outset that I have one premise. It's very well captured in the slogan, every child, one voice. I have one premise, that parents have many, many, many things that cause and relate to diversity and separation and all the beautiful gifts of humanity that are so different. But I also believe that parents have the same request and the same hopes and the same dreams for their children. We all want our children to be safe. We all want our children to flourish. We all want our children to be successful, to be valued in the community. There are things that bind us together. And in this day and age, I think we hear very, very often that there is nothing that binds us together, and I believe that's a lie. And I believe that when it comes to social and emotional issues, I think we all want our children to feel emotional safety so that they can feel physical safety. Right? You don't get to physical safety unless you have emotional safety. So focusing on those things we can control, like making our children, our schools safe from bullying and safe from humiliation, safe for belonging, safe for everyone, as the Surgeon General said, feeling seen and heard. All children, children with special needs, children of different colors and races and genders and backgrounds and histories and religions and orientations, all children to feel safe and seen. But we do know, because we're real, that it's not always that way, right? We know that life isn't a wake-up call every morning to the most beautiful, idyllic, welcoming, safe world. And so we know that children will need the skills to respond to situations when they don't feel included, when they don't feel connected, when they don't feel safe, when they don't feel understood. That's life. That's development. There's no vaccine against it. Right? There's only the day-to-day work of supporting people in the moment as they face it. That's what we can do a lot better at in schools. So let's just agree on one or two things. First of all, parents know what's best for their children. Full stop. Teachers are way down the line. I was a teacher, love teachers, love schools. First authority is parents. That's not a progressive idea or a conservative one. Let's just agree, no matter where we come from politically, we don't have to politicize that. We may be in different political communities, but the parents know and are the first teachers. It's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a question. So if I upset teachers sometimes when I say we have to be welcoming to parents, so, I mean, no good teacher resists parents' engagement. No good teacher does. Now, here's the next thing. Our country's terribly, terribly divided, right? Okay, let's see if that's actually the case. Sorry. Oh, I just went through. They wanted me to go faster. Slide 4. I've only got 4 slides. I can do them really quickly. So I'm just showing this. The numbers aren't important, but here's what I want you to see in this number. Every number there begins with an 8. Our country is not divided on these issues. I'll tell you, yeah. Go ahead, speak up.
Politics
Politicians are. The click for contempt people are. Because if you put this on the screen, you don't get a lot of clicks. Now, if I put on the screen, I spoke to the PTA and I saw some hostile parents. And they were outraged by what the Surgeon General was. I mean, boom, I just get thousands and thousands of clicks. Really, show us a picture. Tell us how hateful they are. Get popular. It's a lie. Didn't happen. People say, well, we don't know what social there's the vast majority of parents want more support for the social and emotional development of their children, full stop. It's not 100%. So guess what? This is what Rahima said to me earlier. There's going to be squeaky people on the fringe, so let's get squeaky in the middle. Right? It's not just, by the way, I know am I over time already? Oh, okay. It's not just, okay. It's one of those, okay. It's not just parents, it's also employers, it's also principals, it's also students, it's also teachers. There is a wild consensus in this country about the need to support the social and emotional development of children across the board. Okay, so the question is, in the minutes I don't have, I get asked, what is social and emotional learning? So I'm going to give you a definition for today. Social and emotional learning, SEL, is learning and practicing and living in a way that's socially, emotionally safe and strong. Learning, practicing, and living socially safe and strong and emotionally safe and strong. Here's the good news. When we do this, and I won't do the data, don't worry, children learn better, their test scores go up, their mental health improves, and their physical health improves. So people say, well, wait a minute, it's an either or. We got to do academics or SEL. It is not an either or. Who raises a child that's just got a brain? There's never been a brain in school that came without the rest of the body. The whole person always shows up. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we've got to remind ourselves of these things. Now, so what does it feel like to be emotionally and socially safe and strong? I'm going to give you 2 quick lessons, and then I'm going to get out of here. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I'm going to give you... Okay, so here's the lesson I often introduce when I'm talking to political figures. This comes from a 9th grade curriculum. It's called How to Disagree Without Being Disagreeable. Any person in a marriage should learn this. Every parent and child needs to learn this. Our political leaders need to learn this. All I want you to do is just think about one of these. If we had more time, we'd play around with this a little bit more. But think about number 2 and how hard that is. I'm sorry to go through this quickly. But think about a conflict in your life right now. We all have them. Think about what it would take for you to presume positive intent on the person you're in the conflict with. That's your homework. Not to tell me or anything else, just to work on that inside. What would it take for that uncle of mine, that cousin of mine, that neighbor of mine, that colleague of mine, for me to actually think that that son of a gun who's selfish and narcissistic and doesn't think through things and is out for a fight and is a horrible person actually has a positive intent? Okay, that's homework assignment number 1. Sorry we can't spend more time. I'm over time. Whoop, they really... This is really good teaching here. Can I make this full screen? Oh, no, I guess I can't. Okay, so second skill I want you to know, we teach these things in school. This is called turtling. So how many people had any stress at all today? Okay. So how many people have a strategy? Okay, 2 hands. That's the people running the show. I know I have to get over, right? I could keep talking. I'll talk about this after we introduce the rest of the panel. But I'll share with you that these are skills that children learn to manage stress. Homework assignment number 2. Try it tomorrow, 1 time in the day. We'll talk more about it when we introduce the rest of the panel. Rahima, over to you. Can I stay here?
Fantastic. I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to bring the rest of our panel up. And Dr. Sandy Chung, please join us. And Shanton Berry, where are they? Oh, there you are.
There they are.
Come on, ladies. Welcome.
I'll sit here.
I did? Come on. Yeah.
All right.
I'm having stress now.
Let's got things, shake things up a little bit. Nice warm embrace.
I'm blocking out Shatong.
You will be the first.
Let me tell you that Dr. Sandy Chung is the president-elect of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And Shanton Berry is the National PTA Healthy Minds Ambassador and a member of the National PTA Board of Directors and Leadership Committee. She's got a lot of other titles, too. I'm going to start here. Dr. Chung, as we're talking about things people can do to help themselves and help their children, what can a parent do to help advocate for mental health care in their communities? I mean, really what they can do. We say, go advocate for mental health. I don't even, folks may say, I don't know where to begin. How do I start that?
Yeah, what a great question, and thank you so much for asking. I do want, before I answer that question, just wanted to say I wanted to just go back to my seat and listen to Mr. Shriver a little bit longer, and the Surgeon General, and just what amazing speakers we have today. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm a pediatrician, and I actually practice here out in Northern Virginia. But as a parent, I have 4 teenagers, and so I fully understand, and I'm actually quite glad I'm here. I actually don't think they know where I am. They think I'm still there. They're in their rooms on their phones. They have no idea I've even left.
So you've got 2 practices, the medical practice and the home
Exactly.
practice.
That's right. And so thinking about mental health, certainly, across the country, every parent has experienced some form of stress on their mental health, and their children have too. And when we think about the different ages, I think the challenge here is thinking about, well, what do I do with my, 20-year-old? What do I do with my 14-year-old? What do I do with my 12-year-old? What do I do with my 3-year-old? And what do I do with my 6-month-old? And at every stage and every age, we can all do something to help our child. It's never too late. It's really important to recognize that it's never at a point where you can't actually continue to help your child, regardless of how old they are. When we talk about advocacy, there's multiple forms of advocacy. So there's advocacy, and we think about, with our first speakers at a government level, at a federal level. And those who are interested in doing that or have time to do that, there are many ways to get involved with advocacy organizations in your communities. But then there's community advocacies, there's local advocacy in your school, and thinking about, well, how do we get more help for our kids? Not just at school, but where they are. So perhaps they're in daycare, perhaps they're at the sitters, perhaps they're in your home. And where can you do interventions? I think we think of traditional advocacy as lobbying and reaching out to legislators, and that's incredibly important, as we heard from the first panel. In Virginia, I started a mental health access program where we actually advocated for and received funding to train pediatricians and family physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs on how to manage mental health conditions. We were never really taught that when we went through training. We were always taught to refer to mental health providers, but there's a national shortage. Right? There's a national shortage. So I was referring kids to someone, and they would have to wait 6 months to get an appointment, right? And so what do you do in that environment? And then you become your child's advocate, right? And you can reach out to your pediatrician to try to get them to help. But what I saw was that if we could train more people, people who are already working with children, if we can train the people who are already seeing children to have that skill set to help the child right in front of them. So in our mental health access program now, we have reached over 1 million children in Virginia. so that we have trained hundreds of primary care providers, and we have helped thousands of families find care in their communities. And so that can be done, and that was advocacy work. And so I think that making phone calls, reaching out to your local organizations, that's a great way to start.
And also start by getting Dr. Chung's number, and she'll help you figure out how to make that happen in your community. Shannon Berry, it leads me to think about the bigger picture in terms of maybe families coming together and working as a unit to advocate. And it's not just one person, but is it possible that families could work as groups to advocate for their children?
At a PTA event. Absolutely. I think in that conversation that, one, we have to empower families to know what advocacy is, like Dr. Chung said, that there's different levels of advocacy. And I think when we talk about advocacy, most people do think federal, but every parent advocates for their child every day. Whether you're walking in that school saying my baby needs a book, or there's not enough toilet paper in this school, or what are you going to do about this teacher that's not being effective, you're advocating. And so acknowledging that power and like-minded people coming together and saying, yes, we're going to do this, absolutely, and having those conversations. And being vulnerable enough to say that there is a problem, and being strong enough to say, we're going to take care of it. So that's the power of parents, that's the power of family, that's the power of community, and it's there, and we just have to tap into it.
And do parents need to know that the help can come from someplace other than school, or is it only school, or is school the beginning of where they look for resources, but if it's not there, is it somewhere else?
So I think that in this conversation about mental health, we're looking at it wrong. And we're looking at it from that the school is going to fix the community. And we have to think about the community has to fix the school. And so if we're not having conversations about mental health in our families, it's never going to come into our school building. And so school can't fix home, but home can fix school. And so community can fix school. And so we have to look at this differently. Mental health is not something that we're going to fix with a check sheet. We're not going to be able to check these boxes and say, everybody's healthy now, let's move on. And so we're really going to have to invest in our families, invest in our communities, and then all of that will spill into our schools and help our kids feel safe, help our children, our staff feel safe, and improve the lives of our children. And that's what we should be working out towards. And it should really be about kids and not adults.
Tim, I'm wondering, with what you were, all your charts. We want to see more of those charts. But one of the things I'm wondering, it's summertime, but the challenges we have, the anxiety we have for our children, does it go away because it's summertime? And should we put our children in some therapy for summer, or do we need to let them relax a little bit and sort of refuel and recharge themselves to get ready for this fall? What do you say?
Well, summer's a changing season. When we were younger, summer was community, people worried. Like when I started in teaching, everybody worried about the summer. What were the kids going to do? There weren't enough summer camps, there weren't enough activities, all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, it's a little different. There's a lot more isolation. People are a lot more self-contained. Children tend to be at home a lot more, which means the isolation and the anxiety can build up, just as you point out, over the summer, when there are not the activities that kids need. But the good news, at least I think, is, Rahima, the survey you guys shared with us about from the PTA about SEL, there was a question like, do people like SEL? And people said, well, I don't necessarily like the language. But we're interested in the thing, in the idea. And they said, but during the summer, we don't want SEL. We just want to relax. And I thought to myself, that's really lousy branding on our part, because good social and emotional self-care means you get to relax. That's not an either-or. Being able to manage your stress, build strong relationships, find things that you find purposeful and meaningful and rejuvenating, that's good social and emotional learning. and your stress should go down, and your anxiety should go down, and your relationships with your children should strengthen. The good news, I guess what I'm trying to summarize here, the good news is that there are a lot of tricks of the trade. I put these two up there just for fun, turtling and, carrying on, agreeable conversations and these kinds of things. But there's a lot of ways parents can learn easy skills. There's a lot of websites on this stuff. I encourage you to look. You can look at CASEL's website, casel.org. A lot of the programs are there. National PTA's website. See how she glared at me? My goodness. We need to have a disagreeable conversation without being... Later.
So all that's good. One of the things I'm wondering, as a pediatrician, Dr. Chung, do you say to... Every time I took my child to a pediatrician, I always felt that I was getting as much medicine as he was. I just wasn't getting the shot. But is that some of what you have to do with parents? And can parents lean on their pediatricians for help when their children are feeling out of sorts?
Absolutely. I want every parent and caregiver to feel like they can reach out to their pediatrician or family physician or trusted caregiver in medicine for help. Whether or not your pediatrician may know exactly what to do will vary, depending on their training and their experience. But if they don't know what to do, they'll know where to help you find care. The key here is just to remember you're not in this alone. The whole point of having a pediatrician, and one of the joys of being a pediatrician, is that we get to help you. We get to watch your child grow with you, and you know best your child. We may have some information that we've learned along the way that might help you, and that's really what we're here for, is to help you raise your child in the best way possible. One thing for us to think about is not to think so much about mental health, but rather healthy emotional development. It is an ongoing process, like Shaitan said. It's not now you're mentally healthy, congratulations. That's not quite how it works. But I think when you see your 3-year-old throwing a tantrum, that they're expressing themselves, they're trying to tell you something, they're not there just to irritate you. Yes, my 3 is probably my least favorite age. For my children. But what they're doing is they're learning and they're testing and they're trying to figure out their way. And what they've not yet experienced sometimes, as we went through this pandemic, we all went through this trauma together. What children have not yet experienced, perhaps, though, is that there's an other side to things. They have not necessarily had experiences where they've been tested and perhaps failed, or had to try something and it didn't work, or to be afraid and have an experience that was so traumatizing, but they've not been through that other side where they've lived through it. And they can look back and say, oh, that's not the end of the world. There's another day. Things will be different next week, tomorrow, whenever. So it's really important as parents that we impart that knowledge, share an experience perhaps of when I had that happen, when I was a kid, this is what I did, and this is what I learned. And not necessarily tell them what to do. Tell them what you did. Give them an example. Be a role model. Tell them a story. Because especially when they're at certain ages, my 4 teenagers at home, they're not even looking at me when I'm talking, right? But I know they heard the words. If any of you have ever said something your parents said to you that you swore you would never say, right? You heard the words. They're in your head. You just chose, at the time you weren't too excited about it. But that's what I mean. They're listening. They're hearing you. So share your stories. Teach them the way through.
Shanton, I'm being told that we've only got 1 minute left. I shouldn't do that to you. But as the mental health ambassador, we talk about social emotional learning. And people think, well, there's nothing wrong with me mentally. And that it's just a bad word. You're just making me feel bad. I think there still is a stigma of people looking for help. How do we get people past that feeling of, something's really wrong with you that maybe can't be fixed? And yes, go and seek out help in order to navigate through these challenges that we're having.
So Secretary Cardona talked a lot about we shouldn't normalize things, but I think we need to normalize feelings. We need to normalize having them, normalize that they are big or little, or that we're experiencing them, because when we don't acknowledge them, then we create mental health issues. By not acknowledging your child's tantrum, by not acknowledging that I had a bad day, by not talking about that, we are creating a further mental health issue. So we normalize saying, ooh, it's a great day, I'm going to go shopping, right? We normalize that. We normalize, ooh, my stomach hurts, I'm going to not go to work today. But we don't normalize, I'm stressed out and I don't know what to do today. I don't know how to feel today. So we have to normalize that. And so it's okay to not be in a good mood. It's okay to not feel like peopling. It's okay. It's okay to not want to talk to people. It's okay to do those things. And so how do we normalize that to say it's okay? And so I'm going to just go further because that's what I do. The takeaway that I want every person to have is that as you're having conversations with your babies every day, instead of saying, what did you do today? Ask them, how did you feel today? And change the narrative of how you're talking about feelings and how you're engaging with your child, because that is a different conversation. What did you do today is nothing.
Right.
Right? How did you feel today? Eric really got on my nerves. Now we've got a conversation.
It wasn't me.
You guys are fantastic. You're telling me I got to wrap it up. I want to thank you. That's what we needed to hear from each one of you. Tim Shriver, Stanton Berry, and Dr. Chung. What a great way to end the evening. Thank you very, very much.